Hello, my name is Kelly Garcia, and I have written a book that isn't yet published called My Life with Angele. I would like to read it out loud in the hopes of the editing process becoming more clear to me. We intend to publish this as soon as it is finished editing. I need to let go of so many stories that I just love to tell. And maybe this is a way of me being able to preserve those stories having been told in the live video. But when it comes to the editing process, you really have to cut a lot of stories in order for the book to be a concise work for handling's sake. You can't have it be so long. But I would like to read aloud today Chapter 2, called Learning as We Go. This beautiful centenarian that I cared for in the last 4 years of her life is my joy, and I'm forever changed by having served her in that way. So, without further ado, allow me to read to you Chapter 2, called Learning as We Go. Caregiving requires a lot of love, patience, kindness, and understanding. You have to understand your new friend and meet them where they're at. Give them dignity, show them grace, and help their own words come out of their heart. No one wants to have their life taken from them. No one wants to lose their independence. No one wants to have their thoughts belittled as unimportant, whether or not they are making sense. Being a caregiver is a self-sacrificing friendship. We don't want to come into it with needs, but sometimes that is our driving force. We want to be loved as much as they do. The beautiful thing about true love is that it reciprocates. We enter into serving others with open arms. Imagine the trust Angie needed to have with the new help walking into her house for the first time at an hour that she may have been asleep or indisposed. Outside of her first impression of me at Marion's house the day before, she didn't know me. She placed her confidence in Marion's and Kathy's judgment of me. I arrived at 8 a.m. to help her put stockings on and take her to her Bible study after eating some fruit, as she customarily did every day. While she attended the Bible class with her longtime friends, I walked around the church enjoying all the trees and the beautiful spring weather. When she came out an hour and a half later, she invited me to join her next time. So I did, and proceeded to do so joyfully for the next 4 years. It wasn't hard to see that Angie had trouble with her short-term memory, but since she kept a well-tended heart, I couldn't help but love her and be patient with her. Angie's example came from her parents, Noel and Lodoiska de Renu, whom she respected and admired. They set the example for upright living while spending their lives serving in the church. Angele's love for the Lord strengthened her desire to keep a virtuous heart, doing what she could to also set an example and be an inspiration to others. On our second day together, Angie expressed that she really didn't want anyone laying around the house just waiting on her when she was capable of taking care of herself. She said, "I don't know what to tell you to do around here, so just do whatever you find needs to be done." Take charge? Got it. Each day I cooked, swept, cleaned, washed her laundry, or took initiative to pull weeds and water all the plants. I learned that Angele's immaculate house represented her well-ordered life, and to the best of my ability, I kept it that way. She liked everything in its place and recognized when it wasn't. She called upon me for things she couldn't do herself. She appreciated how I sat and chatted with her about old photographs or kept myself busy when she preferred being alone. It was my desire to make her happy and content in her home. We stayed home that day with nothing on the agenda but eating breakfast and lunch together, and in the afternoon sunshine, we enjoyed a wonderful chat as she sat on her front porch watching me trim and care for her plants. adding soil to her African violets and watering her roses. In this lengthy conversation we had, she prodded me to keep adding to the details I initially offered of my own personal life. She was quite enveloped in my story, and this sparked within her a whole new dimension of what could come from this relationship together. It wouldn't just be about having someone care for her needs, but also having someone awaken her inner desires to help others. This was the beginning of our friendship and truly represents how we spent our time together. On our third day together, Angie needed help with a shower before going to her hair appointment. She told me that she has always been a very private person, but the shower was a necessity, so she just tried to keep a good heart about it. The poor girl. This part of helping her would never, ever get easier. My next surprise would come in regard to the hairdresser. Angie told me that Frances owned this beauty salon in Corona after her hairstylist Carmen no longer could, although she still styled hair on Fridays. With memory loss, you never know which stories are accurate, either in part or whole, but it didn't matter to me. I accepted Angie's word for everything unless accurate truth was imperative for safety or accomplishing tasks. The truth that was validated, though, was that Carmen had been styling Angie's hair since Chris and Kathy were little. I couldn't believe my ears, nor could I believe my eyes, as Carmen expertly styled Angie's hair into what never ceased to garner compliments through the years, all while Carmen held on to her walker. 6 months later, Angie told me that she was disappointed in the style Carmen did on that particular day. Angie was pretty frustrated with it. I tried to convince her what a miracle it was that Carmen was still styling hair after 60 years, so we could expect that she'd have a bad day every once in a while. There was good fun with these longtime friends at the salon when they learned that I spoke some Spanish. Her friend Esther expected me to speak Spanish every time I came, but I'm glad Amy, Frances's daughter, was there to interpret all my mistakes. Angie got tickled every time I spoke some Spanish with her at the salon or at home, since it was Angie's first language. Our foundational week began with our lunch together at Marion's house and ended with Chris and Randy taking Angie for a drive to the beach on Saturday so that I didn't need to come. It was a successful week that concluded with a short email to Kathy of what we accomplished. It looked like this. First weekly email to Kathy, May 4th, 2013. Wednesday, May 1st, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Bible study, lunch at home, and returned to prepare dinner. Thursday, stayed at home all day, prepared breakfast and lunch. We had a great conversation while she sat outside, and I cleaned up her front porch plants and added soil to her African violets. I watered all her outdoor plants and roses and swept the porch. Friday, May 3rd. Shower, hair appointment, 9 a.m. breakfast and 4 p.m. lunch. I cleaned her shower and the rest of her restroom, and I turned her master bed sheet around. I cleaned the trash can lid and took out the trash. I wiped down the washer and dryer and attempted a load of towels. I told Chris that there was not any laundry soap. She'll wash them on Saturday. I ran some dishes through the dishwasher because there wasn't any dish soap for the sink. The stove guy came during late lunch. Saturday, May 4th, Randy and Chris will come at 10 a.m. and take her to the beach, so I won't be coming over. That was the shortest and first email of the 200 that I sent to Kathy. A funny thing occurred when the stove guy came while Angie and I were having lunch. Since I was new on the scene, I had no idea why the repairman was called. I didn't know what to tell him when he asked what the problem was with the countertop stove. He was trying not to laugh when all he had to do was plug it in behind the microwave for it to work. Although it was a financial loss to have him come out, the time was redeemed with the beaming encounter between this now enamored Guatemalan man and the witty wise, and dignified 96-year-old Panamanian. It was a fascinating encounter for me to witness the lively conversation that was part Spanish and English. It would be the first of many opportunities that I would be blessed with in seeing how much Angele lit up the room. He and I were both so impressed with her conversation and abilities. As the weeks, months, and years progressed, the emails to Kathy became a highway of information between her and me. I studied Angie, learning about her preferences, her physical abilities, emotions, memory loss, and aging process, then shared it all with Kathy in those weekly emails. I also told her how compatible Angie and I were with each other, which really helped us work through any difficulties, because we had a love between us working through all the changes that came our way. She trusted me and leaned upon my friendship, and I certainly loved being with her. Angie and I discovered a mutual fondness for going on outings. We enjoyed viewing homes and landscaping, either on our drives to and from church or gallivanting around the countryside. After Bible class ended the last week of May for the summer break, Angie, Flora May, and I enjoyed many lovely days at the mall for lunch and people watching. Angie loved her porch, so we spent many hours there chatting or inside talking about her old family photos in the electric photo frame. Sometimes I would listen to Angie read aloud to me from the kind-hearted or funny stories in her Guidepost magazine. There was a curious thing that Angie said to me one day at the end of our second month together. She wondered if her memory loss was due to having helpers. She understood that the less she did for herself, the more she would forget how to do them. This may have been the reason why she didn't want me to stick around too long each day in the beginning months. After her anxiety level dropped from releasing the previous caregiver, she was happy to dismiss me every afternoon when she felt like being alone. She would say little things like, "Oh, you don't have to work so hard," or "What are you still doing here?" It made me giggle. It was my pleasure to give her what she wanted, paying attention to the need of the moment. It may have caused all the rest of us to be nervous about her being home alone, but she was happy. She alone had to deal with the little difficulties that came along, like when she bumped her phone off the shelf and it fell behind her recliner. Her first thought was always to go to her back door to holler for Stephen LaGuire, her daughter's former college friend who acquired the home next door to Angie from his mother after she passed away. He had remained a friend of the family throughout the decades and was always so attentive to Angele. He answered many a shout from Angele's back door to fix the TV or solve problems when no one else was around. After I left one afternoon, I had to call Angie to apologize for forgetting to shut her bedroom curtain that was becoming a little sticky, a little hard to close. Around 8:30 p.m., she called me back saying she couldn't shut it. I recommended using the broom handle to push it shut, and she called me back again and said, "Success!" It was so cute. Angele always tried to be extremely careful with her steps because she wanted her freedom. She astounded me daily with what she could do at her age, although once there was an occasion where I arrived in the morning and found her stuck in the closet and kind of laughing about it. She told me that while she was standing to select her clothing for her trip to Maine, she grew a little tired and decided to sit down on her walker, then realized that she couldn't stand back up. She had tried to scoot the walker out of the closet, but the wheels weren't in the right direction. She was unharmed, but she didn't want to confess how long she had actually been there because she didn't want to look like she needed anyone. Even though it wasn't longer than a half hour, she was greatly relieved to be rescued. It was such a joy caring for her. She was so much fun. She was witty, and we laughed a lot. The summer days were hot, and that usually spells trouble for the elderly, so I tried to encourage Angele to drink as much fluids as I could. She just simply didn't like drinking water, though I think her lack of intake was more likely due to the disinterest of walking to the restroom too many times in a day. It's the not so hidden secret of the elderly as to why they don't want to drink too much. I tried my best to entice her, placing ice water in strategic locations, but I think her success at preventing dehydration was how much fruit she actually consumed. She had fruit for breakfast and often some before dinner as well as before bed. She loved her fruit. She also didn't sweat very much. Her skin was so thin that she couldn't stand any cool breeze, either from the air conditioning or the cold weather, and so she wore a sweater year round. I'm not a cold weather person, she frequently said. I became Angie's entertainment coordinator, even if she was just watching me clean the restroom. She loved keeping me company no matter where I was in the house or what I was doing. I would also take her for drives. I have have discussions over many things. We'd look at her pictures or I'd bring new things with me to keep her mentally stimulated. I showed her my 1917 Schofield Reference Bible in a cedar Bible box that was similar to hers. She browsed its pages and was tickled that it was printed the year she was born, 1917. Right before Angie was to spend 2 weeks in Maine with her family at the annual reunion in the middle of July 2013, I sat with her talking for a while and then prayed with her for her well-being, her happiness, her safety for her cross-country venture. She already had such a profound effect on me after only knowing her for 2 short months. When she returned a couple of weeks later, she was so happy to tell me the wonderful memories she could recall about her trip, and also mentioned that Kathy renewed the invitation for her to move there. She felt she was too old for such a change. She said if I didn't own this home, it would be so easy to stay there. After I shared some encouragements, she felt I didn't understand the age aspect, just how difficult it was to just get up and move. She had me there. One's knowledge is oftentimes gained by experience and not easily expressed with words. You just feel it. As I was looking into her eyes, I really felt what she was trying to express to me, a 48-year-old young'un, that I didn't understand how impossible it was to make such a change. I could see that her eyes were speaking what her words could not express. I reminded her of how I lost my home and sold most everything I owned the year before, and then I explained how freeing it actually was to not have so many belongings. To be honest, stuff drags you down. I told her I could help her, but the conversation was kind of left there. I wanted her to savor her visit with her family, rather than contemplate what appeared to her to be an impossibility. She really had to desire it. She was very happy with my typical 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. visit, and as always, very appreciative. I loved her to pieces. I enjoyed hearing her thoughts about her trip on our first day back together as we sat together on the edge of her bed. This is how we were. I listened to her. I learned from her. I watched how things affected her. Then I would describe my findings in the emails to Kathy. I told Kathy it was interesting to me what curiosity or anticipation or nervousness did to Angie. It created things inside Angie like exhaustion, anxiety, and confusion. Yet she described it as complication, such as when Angie became unexpectedly anxious over a pending visit from the previous caregiver. Angie said, "She's making my life complicated." This was basically Angie's way of saying that she didn't know what to think of it, nor did she understand why it made her so nervous. It even caused her to wonder how to receive such a visitor, but the visit ended up being so nice that Angie felt better afterwards. She used to enjoy the woman for outings, but explained to me that her energy was too much for her. This is a typical caregiver-client issue. It has to be a successful match of personalities. Since Angie worried about imposing on others and also desired to please others, She didn't always know how to express her feelings when they were conflicted. Angie always affirmed me in many ways, but after that woman's visit, she told me how happy she was that I'm the only one who comes. When her Bible class resumed at the end of summer, Angie said that she didn't like putting me out to get her there. Marion told her that's why Kelly was hired. We discovered it was because she didn't want to leave her home. She was happy to just be by herself. Marion told me how much she hoped Angele would get out while she still could, so I asked Angie once again if she was interested in going. She kept forgetting all about it the whole week, even moments after I reminded her. I left it up to her, but assured her again and again that I really didn't mind taking her. Finally, she said she would go check it out and see if she felt like continuing to go afterward. And she did, once she saw all her friends attending as well as me accompanying her. Staying home and not seeing different things accelerates decline in cognitive skills, so I really enjoyed getting her out a bunch. Every once in a while, I had a curveball thrown in the midst of lovely days and times. I never knew what surprises would come about. Each morning, Angie would come into the kitchen and prepare her customary daily fruit for breakfast while I prepared something to go with it. I continuously refrained from doing most things for her that she could still do. One particular morning, the dreary skies caused her to be cold all morning, and her mood was different. She glanced into the kitchen as she unusually passed it right on by. There wasn't anything set out for her because I usually waited until she told me what she was interested in. She sat down in her recliner in the living room. After making some fresh squeezed orange juice, I asked if she wanted some breakfast, and she replied, "Well, I'll take a little something in the kitchen." And off she went to the kitchen. I fried a couple eggs to go with the peanut butter and jelly toast, and she peeled 3 persimmons and ate some nuts too. Although she said she could get herself going any time and get whatever she wanted for breakfast, sometimes the mood in the air switched from friendship to hired help. And this was completely okay, but I didn't usually have a heads up until I noticed her mood was off. After she and I took a drive to the airport to drop off Chris and Randy that day, we reverted back to friendship status by her opening up the conversation with, "You haven't said much about your husband lately." I didn't always discuss current events, but that turned our drive into a new conversation between friends, which is what she was needing. Sometimes it was hard to continually build a friendship with Angie when many of my deposits into her heart weren't retained due to her short-term memory loss. You know, all those little details that you share about your life that make you smile or laugh or cry in the telling of it. Not that it was like that all the time, but when I would discover that she didn't remember anything I said, it felt like only one of us had been in the conversation. But the flip side was, with memory loss, we had a whole new conversation every day. Whenever family would come into town for holidays, Angele's daily routine would be disrupted somewhat, and she would get quite mentally turned around. She was so resilient and strong that I just needed to be patient with transitioning her back into the calm state of mind she previously had. She always had a wonderful time with her family, but the extra activity just kind of jostled her brain a bit. Sometimes her stress would rise when her personal spaces got rearranged. On one occasion, placing a new lamp next to her recliner caused both the adjoining shelf and her organized brain to be rearranged. She became lost and confused. She forgot it was Friday night, watched TV until bed, then woke up at 8 a.m. with terrible regret that she watched TV past Sabbath's sundown on Friday night, since this was discouraged by her church for Sabbath activities. She also realized in the morning that she forgot to pick out a dress for church as she customarily did the night before. She was upset with herself, but also fearing the inevitability of the effects of aging. And she said, "I'm losing it." I comforted her by saying that God understands memory loss, then helped get her ready for church and sat with her in the living room. I complimented the light of the new lamp that was placed by her rearranged shelves, but she just frowned and made a remark about her things being out of place and about it confusing her. Her demeanor didn't change toward me, but she wasn't happy about her things being moved around. Not angry, but disconcerted that it made her confused. I knew how to work with Angie and understood what frazzled her. I understood that since she was a very organized person, her stress would increase if things were out of place or if changes were made to the program. She especially didn't do well with program changes when her mental balance was already compromised. Memory issues came and went in the ebbs and flows of physical and emotional exertion, and sometimes she would just begin her day completely off. Such as one Friday when she didn't have enough money in her purse for the salon. Email to Kathy, August 2014. This is written to Kathy. To retell this episode tires me out all over again, but let me tell you about how much anxiety her confusion caused her this morning, repeatedly forgetting why she was going to the hair salon and looking for money in her purse, asking me multiple times about the money, repeatedly mentioning the confusion, which all turned into a very close call of a breakdown with anger over the presumption that other people are running her life. Yesterday, she was concerned about her hair, and I told her I was happy to take her to the salon today, but this morning she didn't remember that she had asked me, and the confusion set in. Every 5 minutes, she repeated her concerns of not having enough money. Although her brain forgets the details, her body retains the anxiety. So although the repeated information was a new conversation to her mind, her body builds the anxiety from one level to the next. First time it's an innocent question. Second time it becomes a concern. But the third time she repeats her concern, she thinks it's the first time she's bringing it up, which heightens into an emotional quest with repeatedly searching throughout her purse for the money to pay Carmen for the styling. I told her several times I would get some money from the bank for her on the way. She went to the restroom and came back to her chair and began looking for the money again, as if it was the first time she was looking. She asked me about money twice more in the beginning of the drive to the salon, and by the middle of the drive, she was near anger that people are running her life. Whew, I won the battle when I came out of the bank by patiently answering the same question with a different answer after she frustratingly asked again. Why am I going to the hairdresser? I gently asked, do you trust me? She paused in thought and then said, yes, but I don't understand why I'm going to the hairdresser. So I patiently responded, because you asked me to take you. And she didn't ask me again. Though her brain forgets, her body retains the stress and anxiety. Anxiety often leads to becoming mentally incapacitated, like when she was having a breakdown on the last day of Chris's extended absence. That's my uneducated but observant guess. Additionally, I learned that her body's on a timer. She knew it was not the right week for her hair appointment. That's what got her stress all started. I saw this in her anxieties last year, so I have tried very hard to not take a day off on her hair appointment days. That's the end of the email that I sent to Kathy right after the episode. Sending weekly emails to Kathy gave me the opportunity to let Kathy know of our usual days and events, as well as the fluctuations of her mother's physical, emotional, and mental health. Before Angele's 98th birthday, Kathy arranged for her mother to come to Massachusetts. Angele's sister, Rosemarie, who was in a nursing home with some physical issues and growing memory loss, and she had many nieces and nephews that also lived back east, and they all were very excited to learn that Angele was coming. Well, Angele would have the joy of visiting with her daughter and traveling with her niece Courtney as her escort. She would also have the joy of her youngest sister Maina coming from Texas. But all in all, Rosemarie, her sister, lived there. So these three sisters were all in their 90s and hadn't seen each other in years. After Kathy told me her mother, after Kathy told her mother of the pending birthday flight, I began to see Angie's stress rise. So I sent this email to Kathy that would help Angele keep calm until the day came to travel. Email to Kathy, January 2015. She is always happy to spend time with you and very excited to see her sisters. But her first thought after you mentioned the trip was one of a dread of responsibility. It was short-lived and soon forgotten as we changed the subject. Neither of us have brought it up, but if I may put in a request, can we keep it mum until the week of her departure? It was good for you to tell her, and if she asks you about it when you're on the phone, then it's meant to be discussed. Yet, I think she will remain very peaceful in her day-to-day routines over the next few weeks if she doesn't have a growing anxiety of the task of composure for such a trip. She seems very sharp at times, yet mentally unstable at other times. A large trip begins to cause her anxiety to be all over the place as her thoughts cannot corral in her head. She wants to be with you, but she doesn't look forward to the task of getting there. By all means, get her there. She will love the trip. You will love her company. A wonderful memory will be made. Sisters will be reunited, family brought close together, and Courtney will be blessed to escort her Auntie Angele to back east and spend time with her aunties. There is everything good about this plan. I love it and I look forward to it for her. I'm just simply reporting to you of your mother's emotional state. I hope she has either forgotten about the trip or has appropriately compartmentalized it so that there's no anxiety at all. Though I think it's the former. In any case, I'm pleased to report that she is happy, contented, and without anxiety in these lovely days in her home. That's the end of that email. Memory loss requires a careful handling of issues that arise involving conflicting truths. I call the handling of such episodes mental maneuvers. That's where you have to take what you understand about a situation and meld it into their understanding until they can adopt what you're imparting to them. Then the whole issue smooths over. Caregiving can be easy. You show up and you love people. You manage the present needs that they have, or you provide friendship for a lonely heart. When it comes to memory loss, bring a 10-gallon bucket of patience and a generous serving of creativity. I wanted Angie to remain as mentally and emotionally balanced as I could help her to be. I loved her, and I wanted her to be happy. I worked hard at this because I also understood the greater workload upon myself when she became confused or anxious. I tried to avoid any conversations I couldn't maneuver with Angie if her cognition was off. It was so difficult to maneuver her out of her train of thought if she was convinced of a matter. When she wanted a ride one day, I tried to gently say that we had already enjoyed a ride 4 days in a row. She kind of felt that my response was insinuating that she was complaining. I told her she wasn't complaining at all. I told her I was just adding to the conversation and mentioned that she doesn't remember how often we do go on drives. Well, that was the wrong thing to say because she was quite assertive in my being wrong about that because she remembers. So I backpedaled and got out of the conversation as gently as I could. Good thing there was a kitty around to distract from a difficult situation. In the spring of 2015, God filled the empty house next to Angie's opposite Stephen's house with 3 precious people who would become like family. Shareni, named after an Aztec princess, and her husband Caesar, and their daughter Elena came to be Angele's very own guardian angels of sorts. In these days, Angele began to have an emotionally hard time with my evening departures. Her new neighbors adopted Angie like a grandmother and visited her often, especially when she was sitting on her porch when they would come home and exchange friendly pleasantries. One typical sunny afternoon, Angele was sitting on the porch as I was preparing to depart. I knelt down next to Angie, and I spoke with her a few minutes about my departure, describing the supper I prepared for her, and detailing the plans of my return. I always came very near to her so she could hear me, but I also came near to her because I loved her so. I kissed her on the forehead and hugged her, saying goodbye. I didn't know that our new neighbor Shadeni was washing dishes and saw us out her window. She later said she could see that my love for Angie was real because of the affection that I showed her without any other soul being around. Angie was very dear to me, and it showed. One Sunday afternoon, Shadeni brought over Angie some fish and rice for dinner and a cup of peaches. She found Angie in such an anxious state from being confused about no one coming over, as I had Sundays off. No matter how often Chris would call her come over, Angie would forget and become stressed if that particular day she was not emotionally and mentally balanced. The story was emailed to Kathy. Email to Kathy, October 2015. Since Shadeni texted me of your mom's Sunday afternoon anxiety, Monday morning I followed up with Angie, who became super defensive as she completely denied any allegations that she was stressed about being alone. Later in the afternoon, she was not quite patiently waiting for me to take her to Chris's house, which is unusual for her. She strolled into the kitchen to see what was taking me so long, and she found me on the phone with Chris. She wanted to know why we didn't just talk when I got there. I explained that the two of us were talking about her difficulty the day before. Your mom then expressed her independent mindset with an aggressive rejection of needing care on Sundays. I just wish people would let me be alone. I could take care of myself just fine. Why does everyone want to make decisions for me? I don't need anyone. Whoa, wait, whoa. I immediately shifted into emotional care to calm her down and had to completely override her torrent of emotion with a heavy dose of love and joy, saying everything is just all right. We love you so, and let's get going. I swiftly shifted the subject to keep rolling with the departure plan, making our way out the back door. As we were leaving the kitchen, she thought of what we were talking about in regard to Shadeni coming over to help her the previous day and bringing her food, and Angie exclaimed that she doesn't even like Shadeni bringing food over. I giggled and expressed how glad I was that she likes my food, and she said, I have no choice in the matter. This was getting good. Oh, one last tart thing came out of her mouth like the last drop of water out of a faucet. She said to me, I threw away her food. Now, I don't know if that was entirely true, because as I recall you telling me, the two of you were on the phone when Angie was eating the food Shadeni brought over, being happy for her company and her thoughtfulness. But the one thing that was Angele's present concern, as she told me, she doesn't know me or anything about me. I didn't know what the food was that she brought over, whether it was pork or not. I thought to reassure her, but before I realized what Angie might reply, I explained that I already told Shadeni that she doesn't eat pork. Well, this didn't make Angie happy at all, but rather quite irritated because it informed her that I was in cahoots with Shadeni bringing food to her. Oh! The interaction in total was maybe only 5 minutes, but sharp and swiftly contained with joy, just like the next morning's disagreement over changing out of the outfit that she put on for the 5th day in a row. She was in that same outfit, and I told her, well, we're going to go to the mall. Would you like to change? And it helped her shift into a very lovely day. It's quite difficult for others to deal with two sides of Angele. She could be very combative and defensive about verbally about the very thing that she is crying about, not remembering either position when the other sentiment is happening at the time. What got her so riled up Monday was that she was ardently declaring her independence in our morning conversation. I revealed Shareni's text to me of your mom's confusion and emotional upset over no one coming to see her on Sunday. And your mom may be very bold about her independence and also very emotional in her loneliness, but revealing the one emotion to her when the other emotion is happening is combustible. Watch out. That's why I was pouring a lot of grace on her, trying to get her out the door to Chris's house because I was trying to get that fire out quickly. I had to be creative when dealing with Angie's anxieties. Sometimes a hard truth would snap her right out of it. On our way back to her home one evening, Angele's anxiety kicked in over being home alone after I would leave. She asked where we were going and if I was going to stay with her. After a few more of her questions and statements about where family was, being scared to be alone and such, I said as we pulled in the driveway, I'm so very glad that you're still able to have your own home so that you don't have to live in assisted living. And that's when her inner self would come out and she would begin to ardently declare that she was not ready for an assisted living sort of thing, adding, not until I need that. And I said, well, Kathy and I don't want you to live in one, and Chris thinks you should because you're lonely and scared at home in the evenings, like you just told me. Well, this set of words caught her, which she immediately washed out with her assertive statements of independence and not needing anyone. Hard truth sometimes had to be spoken in order to get her to pull herself out of anxiety. She was just fine after that, and I was able to leave for the evening without a hitch. It wasn't easy for Angele to be home alone in the evenings as the years went on, but she still desired to remain living in her home, not a facility. For a long time, she enjoyed sending me home in the afternoon. Then there was the joyful period of living with her for a year. Then afterwards came the long season of her returning to being alone in the evenings and overnight once again when I moved out. When I tried to leave each day, she would either be okay with it or, in the extreme, have an anxiety attack over it. Parting from her began to constrain my heart in so many ways. It always affected her appetite, and she began eating less and less while alone. This created a whole new set of concerns for the rest of us, but we rationalized that her anxieties would have been through the roof if she had to learn how to live in a strange place. That level of anxiety would have greatly exceeded the stress she was already experiencing in the transition of my daily departures. If I may respectfully say so, leaving her home in the evenings was like dropping off a preschooler at daycare, like there would be just a moment of separation anxiety before the child settles into the new comforts and joys of the presented set of circumstances. Well, Angie always settled into her reading or organizing while watching the tennis channel, and then she would safely get herself off to bed every night. Every morning when I arrived, I would examine all the areas to see what may have transpired the night before. The dishes were in the sink. She was properly dressed for bed. All the curtains were shut. The lights were out. All these things she did herself, and any other details that revealed that she had another usual evening. If everything was in its place, I knew she had managed well, and she really did, with only a few exceptions. It was once proposed that in order to keep Angie from being alone and lonely in the evenings, an assisted living home would give Angie new friends and activities. But she explained to me once that she was past the desire for making new friends. This came up when Sharini moved in next door. Angie was so proper and didn't like to look foolish. Therefore, she didn't want to feel awkward about knowing what to say to strangers or build friendships. Sharini moved into her heart by doing all the initiating of friendship building with Angie. But there was only so much ground Sharini could gain. Angele wanted to enjoy her visit for a little while, and then she'd want to be alone. I was glad that Sharini was able to come over and sit with Angie at the kitchen table to visit with her and help her transition whenever she fell into a fearful panic attack at the thought of being alone when I would leave. Sometimes Sharini's rambunctious 5-year-old caused Angie to desire a short visit with them, but I was glad that she always helped Angie feel stable once again. Plus, Angie took these opportunities to impart mothering wisdom to Sharini, who appreciated it immensely. I prepared a spread of food for Angie's lunch one particular Saturday afternoon. At first sight of the array of options, Angie got so excited. "Wow, look at all the food," she said. But when she understood that I would be leaving and she saw the note taped to the cabinet that I would not be back until Monday, she sat down with a washed out look on her face. Her expression was as if the food was making her nauseous. Then she said that she couldn't possibly eat any of it and that I should just put it all in the fridge to save for later. I expressed my disappointment at having spent so much time in preparing it all for her, and after a few moments, in order to keep lunch from becoming a complete wash, I decided to help her mood change by bringing Chris up. I said, "Well, Chris will be calling you in a little while to talk to you about hiring this lady named Kim to come help you on Sundays." Because I knew she hated the idea. It worked like magic. That got her ire up, which fires up her neurons, which changes her mood from self-pity to her usual independent, assertive self. She then asked me to put the salad in the refrigerator, but before I could, I showed her the other salad in the refrigerator, saying that there's already one in there, and she decided to go ahead and eat the salad, and then the chicken and the stuffing, and then I successfully made it out the door. The last week of June 2016, we had enjoyed a nice series of fun outings, such as going to the beach and other things. At the end of that Friday, as she sat on the porch, we were saying our parting words for the day, and she expressed such deep gratitude for all the things we did during that week. I wondered, without asking, how much she remembered of that week, but her gratitude revealed that at least she remembered that we did a lot, which I was truly grateful for. Still, ever a student of all that I experienced with Angele, I made an interesting observation about how memory loss and stored emotions affect the body. I knew it didn't matter overall if Angie didn't remember what particular enjoyments we experienced that week. What did matter, I discovered, was that the previous day's joy or stress were retained in her body. The old experience would then compound together with the new day. It was my aim to keep the amount of stress in her life as low as I could. I wanted her mind, spirit, body, and emotions to store up fun, pleasure, and good thoughts because this brought life to her. At the close of Thursday and Friday of that wonderful week of driving about and having fun together, she had such lucid determination to not be nervous about me parting for the day. I reminded her of what she said to me a couple of years before this. She said, "You told me," I told her that I told Angie, "You told me you loved having me come, but at the same time you didn't want to lose your abilities because of depending on me." And she looked at me with great interest at what I was telling her, and I tried to and she tried to recall saying that to me. Being in the car when I said this in close proximity to one another where we heard each other real well and had great conversations, I watched her concentrated thinking as she thought through what I was saying. It was such a curious look, a rare look, a look of clear, rational thinking that truly thrilled me. She agreed with the sentiment, but I think she was a little amazed at the level of conversation we were having as friends, in that she told me something so intimate, so candid, so long ago, and that I treasured what she said. I imagine also that she was possibly pondering how I received and understood her heart, in that she was not trying to insult me, but was being very honest with her feelings. I'm trying to describe something that held such deep meaning, but was over in just a few minutes. I remember it so clearly. We were pulling up to the mailbox to gather the mail in typical fashion, and then backed up into the driveway before completing our deep thoughts after we turned off the car. It had truly been a wonderful week of having her not so forgetful, but remembering that we had done so much together. Angie dearly loved me and thanked me daily for what I did for her. She thanked me for the rides, for my kindness, and anything else that came to her thoughts, like thanking me for my friendship, which I'll never forget. But her thought life was her private space. Sometimes she was thinking about things that she didn't want to speak about. She just worked it through in silence. After church one day, as we were driving out of the church parking lot, she asked if she could go see her daughter, Chris. I had already texted Chris to learn how much food to prepare for Angele in my Sunday absence, whereby learning that Chris was busy for Saturday and she might come see her mom on Sunday. Angele asked me how I knew she was busy, and she got real quiet after I explained how I knew. I stopped in the grocery store to buy some salad for lunch, and Angele stayed in the car to people watch. When I came out, she wasn't exactly watching people. She was looking off in the distance. Well, believing her to be in a pensive moment, I asked, "What are you thinking about?" And she answered, "It's private." There was only one other time that she had ever said that, when it was about me. So in my summation, I believe she was offended that I went behind her back to know what her daughter was doing, or I was determining her steps without including her, or she thought I was in cahoots with her daughter to keep Angele out of the loop of things. All of the above may have been correct, or none of it. She was so pensive, but the only time she kept things from me was when she didn't trust me and wanted to work it out in her own thoughts. So we drove home in friendly, respectful silence. Many of my observations with Angie culminated in this conversation with Darlene, a woman I took care of only 5 months after Angie passed away. I deeply loved as well as studied Angie through all her mental, emotional, and physical changes, gaining a wealth of information to share. When Darlene and I were talking with her daughter about the daughter's proposal that we call on Darlene's friend for a visit to give us something to do, I could feel Darlene pulling back from the idea, and I knew why. The elderly don't often want to make new friends, nor are they sure of how to maintain the friendships they already have. The work of social skills becomes exhausting for them, having to think of what to say that would be relevant to the conversation, or how to properly respond to what is asked of them. It becomes difficult when aging takes its toll on the mental processes. They become fearful of appearing to be less than what the other remembered them to be. Also, it's embarrassing and taxing to try to carry on a conversation that they each might not possibly hear. Then there are the physical limitations of getting oneself to the restroom. With every point I made, Darlene's eyes lit up, nodding in agreement. She lit up at being so well understood, as I explained things that she herself had been unable to put into words. A month after turning 100, Angele told me that I made her feel at home. She could relax around me. When Marion came to visit her other mother, Angie felt somewhat tired afterward and told me that she didn't know what to say or if she should offer Marion something. Angie was the perfect hostess. She always loved making people feel welcome in her home and hosted many a family gathering and church function. She was orderly and always knew what to say when entertaining guests, which always included a picture-perfect table and home. That's why it made her so nervous as to what to say to Marion, because she knew she was forgetting all that. When people age, their abilities decline slowly. It's not a switch that one flips and all of a sudden they completely forget what to say or how to do things. They are cognitively, and might I add painfully, aware that they are slowly losing the ability to calculate what to say or know how to do things. They begin to recede into their own little private protected world where they just might not offend anyone or forget too many things in one conversation or possibly get laughed at or, God forbid, have an accident in public. I'll say it again. To be cognitive of losing one's mind has got to be a frightening thing. That's the end of chapter 2, called Learning as We Go. It presents all the information, obviously not all the information, but it presents many items of information that I was actually learning about Angele as I learned to take care of her. And she also was learning about me as we went. So the chapter is called Learning as We Go. This is the unedited version. And as my daughter and I began to edit the work, we began to take some paragraphs and do musical chapters with some information saying, oh, that one really belongs over in that chapter, and that one really belongs over in that chapter. And so as I read aloud the chapters each day, I'm going to constantly remind you, the listener, that this is unedited. It's how I first drafted the book. And frankly, it helps me to emotionally let go of all the words. It's like being an emotional pack rat, where you don't want to let go of any memory. You don't want to let go of any paragraph. You don't want to let go of any sentence because you want the entire emotion to be retained. But for the reader, it drags on and on. And I give you many props, Retina, for sitting through most of this chapter. But I thank God that he inspired me to send those 200 emails to Kathy. And I thank God that he gave me over a year and a half to compile the topics, drawing from all the emails. I would pull out a paragraph here and a paragraph there, and I would dump them all into the chapter like a grocery bag. And then I would have to sift through it all and try to blend it all. And I did that with about 20 different subjects. And then I had to cut out some chapters, keep some chapters. And so right now it's kind of standing at about 17 chapters. And I'm happy to read it aloud to you. And I'm happy to have the whole book spoken out into the air, that the Holy Spirit could use it as he desires for his will. Whatever this story is meant, wherever this story is meant to go, to help someone else, then I praise God for it. I'm not looking to profit off of it. I just want to speak the story of my life with Angele in the hopes that it might bless someone. So thank you for listening. May God bless you.